always remember that you're a vibrational match to God already. You're already in resonance with Nibbana. You already have a Buddha mind. That already is you. What prevents you from being aware of that is static. They call it dukkha, stress and suffering. Now, we physically experience stress as a type of suffering because the spirit's trapped in a body inside a samsaric circle. And as you become sensitive to that, you may choose to, have a slightly negative view. Yeah, life is suffering. Well, that's a poor translation. Life is stress, which generates evolution. When an electromagnetic fluid generates clinging, it allows creation to form. And everything inside of that's forming inside of creation out of mind substance is evolving back up to universal mind. So it's an opportunity. Now, the word suffering gives a negative shadow on the opportunity. But if you look at life, it has the stress, which gives me the opportunity for joy, gives me the opportunity for spiritual adventures, gives me the joy to climb that mountain and have an epiphany, then stress is the accelerator of your growth. And the Hermeticist really looks at it in this way, that practice is joyful, it's fun. It's, I can't wait to get to that volcano and stand there and connect and feel the fire spirits and breathe the fire element through my body and have a wonderful experience. That's the shamanistic path. That's the nature magic path. It's fun and it's exciting and the spirit's like, can't wait to practice, this is great. It's not stress and suffering. It's pressure that generates joy. Now this perception is really, really important because I see more people fail in the spiritual path because of the suffering. They're not channeling that energy into the positive. They're letting it become a kind of a dreary, equanimous negative. So it becomes a bit heavy and boring. Now, equanimity generates boredom as a contrast to emotional excitement. So yeah, that's going to happen to some people. But if you swing that equanimity from this boredom type of thing to a spiritual high from climbing a mountain, you're going to be climbing a lot of mountains. Now, this is an important facet of success. It's how you take dukkha, stress. You don't translate it as suffering, but you translate it as, I'm going to steer this into a high and move it to where you want to go. This is super important. Dukkha is not suffering. It's stress that drives you up. It moves you to a greater place. Now, in order to do that, you have to understand, what are we talking about stress? What is that? When you vital breathe and you condense your willpower and breath through a stretch into the space outside your body in the ball, you get this electromagnetic feeling. It's a fluidic quality of vital energy or prana. It's the basics of yoga. You stretch the facial web to radiate prana. Basics of Qigong, you stretch facial web to feel life force, feel Jin, feel Qi. It becomes Qi when you slow it down. It's more prana or vitality when it's in a raw state. When you take prana and you go, okay, well, I'm going to give it a universal love quality and interact with universal love, it'll radiate a Qi of love. You give it information and send it off as you release time on it. Now, this process of understanding how this vital energy functions allows you to recognize, electric and magnetic is stress, attachment and aversion. Magnetic generates attachment, electric pushes things away. They interact, they create stress, and energy vibrates, the law of vibration. Creates a rhythm, the law of rhythm. Moves from micro to macro levels and macro to micro levels. So the law of reflection. So you get these vibrational principles functioning. This is dukkha, that's the stress. It is not suffering. The reason why they call it suffering in reality is because the spirit senses, I am caught in something. So it has a sense of, I have to get out of what I am caught in. But most Buddhist texts will talk about, you see a person getting old and they're suffering. That's got nothing to do with it. That's intellectual nonsense. Stress is the way electric and magnetic fluid vibrate, the way stress allows the vibration to exist, the way it holds the mental body inside a reincarnation process, and the spirit senses, I am caught inside samsaric cycle of birth, rebirth, death, and so forth, this continuous cycle. That is the suffering. But that's not the path. Not to have that view. The path is, how do I get out of this? Have fun, train, climb mountains, sit on cliffs, practice in caves, go snorkeling, vital breathe under the water. While you can't breathe physically, you breathe energetically with a snorkel. Go, oh, this is good. Feel this magnetic fluid. When you breathe with your body but not with your lungs. Have exciting experiences. Go on adventures where your spirit's alive. And every time your spirit reaches that peak, anchor it and sit in meditation and enjoy the stillness underneath the high. Cultivate joy inside of your practice. You don't need to do 10-day retreats where you sit down and be quiet. You don't need to go into this thing of, oh yeah, I just have to quietly be mindful all the time. That's a part of the path. It's not the path. Now, it's one way of approaching it. It's not the way of approaching it. So it's very important to recognize, yes, you climb a mountain and you have this high, and you recognize anytime my spirit is really high, I've accumulated a high density of spirit and I've accumulated akasha underneath it. Now is a good time to have a sit. You're in that high, you quietly pay attention to the stillness that you've accumulated around your spirit, and you have a wow moment. And you go, the law of rhythm will shoot you into a stillness you can't achieve normally. Ask anyone who's addicted to jumping out of airplanes and doing these high adventure and high intensity sports. The euphoria that they have has an underlying expansion of consciousness that can't be described. This is due to the amount of akasha that's invoked while they have that experience. So these adventure type people, they're the ones who can achieve the highest in meditation because the law of rhythm allows them to go to extremes. The danger for these people are drugs, because it also gives them a high. So be careful about the weak points of being a fire person adventure. Now, when you are training this principle of having fun, how do you measure what you're doing and the benefit it gives you? You measure it through the accumulated stillness of the activity. A really good simple one I like to use is tennis. Okay, there's a tennis court. You expand your mental space. You feel your side of the court, you feel the other person's side of the court. You become very aware of the mental space. Good, mental body training. You feel your partner's intent. You're astrally reading them. Which way are they going to hit the ball? Your facial web, every time you swing the racket and stretch, it's fascia. You're controlling your breath, you're controlling your tempo. And the ball is flying around the court as well. You have a meditation object. So you're multitasking on all these levels as you play the game. And then when you finish the game, you sit down and you close your eyes and wow, the chemistry in the body, the stillness underneath, the profound openings that have taken place during having to expand your mind and multitask in all these different ways to play this very internally complex game. And if you're vital breathing into the whole court and astrally releasing time and being sensitive to your partner's intent and reading everything and stretching and hitting the ball and just rhythmically having fun with the experience, the stillness that's accumulating underneath is incredible. And it's there whether you even sit and acknowledge it or not. At the end of the game, if you didn't sit down and close your eyes and dwell within the stillness, that energy underneath is still there. You accumulated it through the action of playing tennis. And this is half of the addiction to these types of things. It's almost as if tennis can become a spiritual journey for people because of the nature of what happens underneath the game. This will happen in golf and other sports as well. It's a spiritual thing for a lot of people. And if you want to recognize why is it a spiritual thing for those people, find the rhythmic polarity of the activity, the way the mind and all these endorphins are rushing through the person's body, the degree of concentration and the degree of stillness underneath. If the stillness is there, perfect. Now what's an example of a negative sport? a negative activity, something gives you anxiety, it breaks the stillness. If you're highly anxious, instead of the energy fueling a positive to create a deep underneath stillness, it's fueling a negative and it breaks your stillness. It leaves you the type of anxiety. It's not one-pointed, it becomes static. So what is the degree of one-pointedness versus the degree of anxiety and static inside the activity? This becomes a measuring gauge. Is this good for my growth, or is this not good for my growth? This principle is very important because it allows you to cross-train in climbing and doing things which can give you very extreme amounts of gain versus things that are taking you backwards. If you're feeling negative anxiety and static in doing something, it's not generating an underlying stillness, it's not stimulating the spirit and bringing you joy and opening the three bodies. If it's pulling the three bodies in and making you anxious, it's not good for your spiritual practice. So, when we look at Dharma, stress and suffering, Dukkha, when we look at Dukkha, stress and suffering, we need to be able to channel the stress so it gives us a positive upward curve and cultivates a deep stillness so that we get positive outcomes. A person, if you take a 6-year-old kid who has learning difficulties and is a problem child in school and is disrupting the class, you give them something like a game of tennis to concentrate themselves on and just substitute 1 or 2 of their classes for that type of sport where they're forced to concentrate themselves inside of the game. That increase of concentration is going to reflect in the classroom. When they go back to class, they're more concentrated, their mind's focused because they learned how to focus in the game. But it has to be a game where they have to be 100% present and to perform and play the game. And then that increased concentration will reflect in every area of that child's life. You can't increase concentration in one area without all other areas being affected by an increase in concentration, even if it's related to a very specific skill type. Everything else is going to, through principles of energetic reflection, increase in the mind's ability to concentrate. So what do we do from there? We take that game of tennis the kid's learning and we make it an academic process. So you teach the mechanics, you teach the nature, the history, the geography. They play this Wimbledon game in England somewhere and the kid starts absorbing information through the periphery of learning to concentrate on the game. And because it's in the same folder in that kid's mind, his concentration goes through the roof in his academia ability to learn because it relates to the game where he knows how to concentrate. So every kid has a different door to take dukkha, stress, and channel it into a positive outcome. Every person has that door. What's your door? How do you take stress and this energy inside you and channel it in an exciting, adventurous way to develop your own unique spiritual journey that's going to make you grow and give you profound levels of underlying stillness? Ask yourself that question, find the answer, and have fun traveling that journey. Thank you for your time, and see you on the next video.